Nation of Fitin10, welcome to day 3 of the challenge. And just an FYI, I have not checked any of the feedback form that is, I actually don't even know, did I send you the feedback form? I'm pretty sure I did. It went out in your first email. But anyways, I ask you to do the feedback to me at the end of each week. Now, Sunday, being yesterday, was second day of the challenge, so maybe it's a bit too early, and really the first full day for you. So I will check that, just FYI. Also, I am not, I'm being relatively easy on everybody with the feedback and your food, because, you know, ultimately right now we're just trying to get kind of big picture, major things. I will, you know, become a little more detailed with your food logs. And I'm purposely doing that, obviously, because right now I just really want you to get the big picture. All right, so the reason I'm saying this is because down the road you'll be like, well, you never told me this, but I've been doing this the whole time. So just FYI on that, okay? Just a couple things here for those of you using Chronometer. In case you care, I've gone back to MyFitnessPal personally, just because I find MyFitnessPal easier to use. Nothing wrong with Chronometer. Chronometer is kind of cool because it gives you a breakdown of a lot of the different nutrients, like a lot of the micronutrients and stuff like that. The one thing I do want to say about the micronutrients in Chronometer is that's really just an estimation. So it's not like the macros. The macros are definitely going to be very close to accurate for, you know, most of the verified entries. But the micronutrients, that's one that's really tough, because that will vary just based on the food quality. And the food quality, you know, there's a whole host of reasons, right? You know, what kind of soil it was grown in, how it was fertilized, perhaps what kind of pesticides were used, and, you know, how long the food was in storage for. Those types of things will affect the micronutrients. So it's very hard to gauge micronutrients. Just an FYI, alcohol you're not supposed to have for the challenge. You're supposed to go dry for the challenge. So I just want to remind you of that. I know Sunday was Mother's Day, and there were probably some celebration, some level of celebration with family, etc. So, but I really want you to try to go the remaining 67 days dry. No alcohol. Just give it a shot. Just give it a shot, and just, you know, be consistent with it and tell me how you feel by the end. Maybe that's not fair because we're making a lot of changes. So you're going to feel better regardless, I think. But I'm still going to encourage you to do it. Go dry for the whole challenge. All right. Some people have mentioned about, and this happens every challenge, you know, I feel like I'm eating a lot of food. And so one thing I just want to say here, and I'm not insinuating that you're saying this, but don't confuse quantity of food with calories, right? So, which I'm sure you're not, but I just wanted to say that. So ultimately, this is one reason why I want you to eat real whole food, among many reasons, is the fact that it's very voluminous. Typically speaking, real whole foods are for the most part, with maybe the exception of like fat sources like nuts and avocados, real whole foods are calorie sparse. You're getting a lot of volume relative to, say, other foods that are out there. Okay, relative to processed foods, okay, man-made foods, essentially. Not always, but usually. Reminder, I want you to weigh all of your solid foods. This includes fruits, okay, and especially nut butters. Okay, you might think of nut butter as sort of a liquid, but weigh it out, because I will tell you right now that, for example, a tablespoon of nut butter should be about 15 grams, okay? That's what a tablespoon should work out. But is that a flat tablespoon? Is it a heaping tablespoon? What does that tablespoon look like? And that's the problem, okay? So I'm just going to say weigh it out, because if you measure it by a tablespoon, chances are you're entering it as a tablespoon, which would be equivalent to 15 grams. But I already said it, but I'll say it again. Chances are it's probably closer to 30 grams. It's probably closer to double. All right. unless you're measuring it with a tablespoon, you're packing it down, and then you are literally leveling it off with a knife, okay? So weigh out all of your solid foods, okay? You do not need to weigh out liquids. You do not need to weigh out milk. I don't really think anybody's having juice. I don't really recommend juice. But what's another good example? Oils, okay? You don't need to weigh those out. You can measure those out. That's okay. Restaurant food. Again, I want to remind you, we did talk about this in the tutorial. I really, really want to encourage you to stick to real whole foods. All right, and restaurants, remember this, restaurants, they have to watch their bottom dollar. So they want to make the food, generally speaking, unless you're going to a high-end restaurant, they want to make the food economical so they can make more money and not charge you so much for it. And they want to make it taste good, which means they're going to put cheap ingredients in there, and they're gonna put an overabundance of those cheap ingredients. Typically oils, like canola oil will be a big one, which is kind of a big no-no. You don't want to have canola oil in your diet. Among many other things, and certain sugars. So be very, very careful. If you go out to a restaurant, eat basic food. Okay, proteins, fish, steak, chicken, something like that. Sides, salad, baked potato, rice, maybe quinoa, something like that, okay? Stick with basic foods. Do not have like a pasta dish. Do not have like a jambalaya or something. There's going to be more calorie dense than you think. And even if they give you the calories, I did talk about this, even if they give you the calories and the macros, they're not going to be accurate. They just won't be, okay? And they don't have to be by law. Pasta, if you are having pasta, there are some decent pastas out there. But especially if you're struggling with protein, go with a high protein pasta. There's actually a lot of good ones out there. I'll post a couple of them in Slack soon here. There is one called, oh, did I write it down? I did text it to somebody. All right. There's one good brand called Barilla. They've got like chickpea-based pasta. They've got soybean-based pasta. And these will be a little bit higher in protein. And there's some other good ones too. So I will post this in case you're looking for a good, little more nutrient-dense pasta. Okay, one with some fiber and one with a little more protein. We might as well do it, especially when the taste is going to be virtually the same as any other, generic pasta out there. So some things to consider. Okay, that will help you. So I will post that. Let's get to the message of the day. And do I have my message of the day up? All right, so just a reminder to you that you don't have to be extreme to achieve results. You don't have to be extreme to achieve results. You just have to be consistent, and obviously consistent with the right things, right? So we want a happy medium, not too low. We want a happy medium of calories, not too low, not too high, happy medium, because we want to be able to sustain this. So we want a happy medium of calories, all right? So we're not creating too much of a deficit. When it comes to exercise, again, happy medium, right? We're doing 4.5 hours a week total. All right, now some of you are gonna do a little bit more. That's fine, but don't do too much more, okay? Also with your intensity, don't do too much. All right, so if you're going higher than your heart rates, that's fine, but just keep in mind that we wanna keep this up week after week, okay? And things add up, things are cumulative, all right? We tend to look at things as like one time, but we wanna look at also the accumulation of what we're doing. So, there's, and I still can't remember this word if anybody's heard me say this before, because obviously we've got people who've done the challenge before in this challenge. But really, when we look at anything, could be, whatever food, could be drug, it could be exercise, we want to look at frequency, we want to look at dosage, and we want to look at the time span at which we do that frequency for. And those three things are really what make, anything from too little to sweet spot to too much, right? Depending on how much of what you're doing, how frequently you're doing it, and for how long you're doing it for. So just keep this in mind. And there's a word that encompasses all of that, and I can't remember what that word is. All right. 10 minutes, I think I've said enough. I'll say it just one more time here, message of the day. You don't have to be extreme to achieve results. You just have to be consistent with the right things, right? Consistent with the right things. Happy medium. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself for the love of God. Give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.